to this computer.
Yep.
All right, we are on. Okay. Buenos dias. My name is Michelle Ruiz, and today I will be presenting you my project for the cheer program. So a little bit about me. So my name is Michelle. I am a PhD student in the geography department at the University of Florida, and I'm also a Bill Anderson Fund Fellow. And as part of my dissertation research, I focus on hurricane risk communication for Spanish-speaking communities, particularly in Florida, but now I've had the chance to explore Eastern North Carolina. And so my family and I started new in Florida, where the natural hazards are very different from what we were used to in Colombia. So we take a look here at the map, if it works. Okay. So this is where I came from. This is Bogota, a city nestled in the Andes Mountains, where the main natural hazards are mudslides and earthquakes. And so moving from Bogota to Miami was kind of a shock because this was the first time I saw the ocean. And so we're moving from earthquakes in a mountainous region to living by the coast where hurricanes are a very common natural hazard. And so we had to learn how to prepare for natural hazards such as hurricanes, when normally we're used to just preparing for earthquakes. And now my story is not unique. I'm one of many Hispanic people who migrated to the United States and to Florida in search of new opportunities. And because there's such a large population of Hispanic people in South Florida, the communication there is really tailored to them. This is who I like to call my hero. This is John Morales. He's a meteorologist who is bilingual. So he has done broadcasts in Spanish, he has done them in English, and he's someone who has really secured the trust of the Hispanic community in South Florida. And he still forecasts to this day. And since we've migrated to a more digital world, and we've transitioned from being on the TV to online and news articles where they're also tailoring to our Hispanic community. And then we also have examples such as this hurricane guide from the Miami-Dade County, where they're also ensuring that the Hispanic community is aware of the hurricane risks and hazards and how to prepare. So as part of the Summer Scholar Program for the Coastal Hazards, Equity, Economic Prosperity, and Resilience Cheer Hub, I wanted to explore how hurricane risk is communicated to Hispanic populations here in Eastern North Carolina. So my presentation, technically that was a little introduction, is called Closing the Gap in Hurricane Risk Communication in Eastern North Carolina. So what is hurricane risk communication? So hurricane risk communication is a sharing of information of a hurricane in order to help people understand the hazard itself, in this case, the hurricane, and then also make the best informed decisions that they can in order to stay safe. So we're not just talking about communicating the science. It's more than the science and it goes beyond the science. We really want to connect with people in order for them to really understand what they can do to make their best decisions for themselves. So I really like this quote from one of the National Service meteorologists that we met with. And he said, how do we make people respond in a way that they're taking the action that they need to stay safe? Because it's not just about communicating the science. And communicating science is hard. It is not easy. I think that one of the biggest examples is the cone of uncertainty, which I'm sure if you live in a hurricane-prone area, you've seen. And even if you don't, you probably have already seen. And hurricane communication goes just beyond telling you that there's a hurricane coming. Some experts in the field focus on colors, because sometimes the colors need to convey the urgency. There's also issues with numbers and communicating probability. If you tell someone there's a 90% chance of a tropical storm or tropical cyclone formation in the next 5 days, what does that really mean? Sometimes it can be overwhelming because this is not fun stuff that we're talking about. We're talking about preparing for something that's very scary. So there's so much to do. There's so many ways to protect your home. And sometimes it's just too much information that can overwhelm or paralyze you. And another issue is language. So we need to make sure that we're communicating to all people who speak multiple languages so that they're all aware of the actions that they need to take. So there's been a huge growth in the Hispanic population in North Carolina in general between 2010 and 2020 of about 40%, which totals to about an 11% of the total population. And so if we look at this map, you could kind of see where the pockets of Hispanic communities live. They're mostly over here in this area in Raleigh. You'll have access to this map. So if you wanted to really explore Pitt County, Hispanic population only makes up 7.6% of the population. That's obviously the county that we're in. And then it's about pretty similar in all of the other counties that we visited. And Latinos, even though they're not the majority in Eastern North Carolina, they're very integral to our communities. They're contributing. They're contributing in boat manufacturing. They contribute in the hospitality industry, in agriculture. They're also leaders within our communities. They serve in local governments and nonprofit organizations. And so they're part of who Eastern North Carolina is. So when we went around and we traveled to all these different offices and spaces, my question to them was, how do you serve the Hispanic community? So I'll give you a little brief tour to sum up the last 6 weeks, which seems like a blur now. So obviously we started here at Greenville. We met with Pitt County Planning. We also met with the City of Greenville Neighborhood and Business Services Home Consortium Program Office. And this is in no particular order because I don't remember the order because again, it's been a blur. We also went to Oriental where we met with the Pamlico Disaster Recovery Coalition. We went to Craven County. So we met with the City of New Bern Public Works, the Coastal Carolina Disaster Resiliency Agency, and the Craven County Planning and Community Development Office. We traveled to Newport. This may have been my very favorite visit. We went to the National Weather Service Forecasting Office. We also met with Coastal Community Action Office. We went to Beaufort, where we met with town officials and we attended a Board of Commissioners meeting and we even got to meet the mayor, which was super exciting. We also went to Kinston, where we met with county planning and inspections. We went to Washington, which was also really awesome, where we met with city officials there as well. And finally, we went all the way to Raleigh, where we met with the stormwater management team. So throughout my visits to all these different places, I was able to kind of put together in my mind, what does successful communication look like? And so some of these places did have bilingual staff, which is great. It's a step in the right direction. So they have one of the city members, and I'm not going to say specifically which one, because this is sort of a sensitive topic, so they're going to remain anonymous. But someone from one of the city offices said that they do have an outreach staff member who does translate a lot of the documents and has translated everything online. So whether it's something for inspections or hurricane damage or a building permit, they have that all translated, which is great because that's a way for them to connect with the community. There's also access to translation services. I think that the best example of that I saw within an organization was at the National Weather Service. They have the Multimedia Assistance in Spanish program where they themselves within their organization can reach out to different people at different locations if they do need translation services or if they need to conduct some sort of interview in Spanish, whether it's for social media or on the radio or on TV or anything like that. So they know that they can reach out to somebody, even if they themselves don't have that resource in their office. So I thought that that was really great. Other offices do have translation services where they connect with local churches. Sometimes it's digital. They'll pull up their phone and they'll just kind of go with it. And so they'll try their best to use these translation services. There is a word of caution though, because translating sometimes isn't the best, particularly when you're using your phone or AI. So AI may skip a couple words, it may not be accurate, and it also kind of overlooks the diversity and the complexity of the Hispanic populations in your community. A lot of people also mentioned partnerships with local community organizations. A quote that I really liked was someone who said, "Here we rely on community spark plugs to disseminate the information, and that works for us." So a lot of the spark plugs that people mentioned were churches, particularly the Catholic Church. So these entities provide a lot of support, whether it's emotional, spiritual, or I guess resources to the community. And this was, I believe, from Hurricane Helene, which is obviously the most recent example we have in North Carolina. Another really exciting thing that I saw in our visit was that there's people celebrating the community. In the city of Washington, last year was our second annual Hispanic Heritage Month Festival, which I thought was really awesome. So that's a way to connect with the community, bring them to you, and let them see you and know who you are. And then my most favorite thing that we learned about was this Viva la Vida mural, which you saw at the beginning of my presentation. So at the city of Washington, they got a grant that allowed them to make this mural, and they were able to get, I believe, a local artist, and then like 300 elementary school kids. And I think what impressed me most is that they were able to figure out how to like get them on task and just productively get 300 kids to contribute. They like color coded the little wave sections, and they gave them a cup, and they're like, "This is for number 2, go find a number 2 and paint it this color." And they did that for hours. They rotated every hour from kindergarten all the way to high school. So now these kids know that as they grow up and they drive past this mural, they can say, "I was a part of that. I did that." But obviously we can't have all cities paint a mural to celebrate Hispanic populations. So there are still some existing challenges. Resources aren't always available in Spanish. And what I appreciated was the transparency with those that we spoke to. So I asked them if they had some sort of resources, and someone said, yeah, like all we have right now is a card that people can point to and say, "I need help translating." And they have that because it's part of a grant, a USDA grant. And that's all they have. And so they said, that's not a good answer, but it's the truth. And so that kind of shows you the need in that community and in that space. And then other people knew that there were Spanish speakers in the community. They knew that there was someone that they could reach out to, but they didn't really know exactly who that person was. They probably saw them at an employee appreciation lunch. So they know that they're in some sort of office, but they haven't made that connection themselves. So they can't really pick up the phone and say, "Hey, can you come over and translate for me?" That connection isn't there. And then again, with the transparency and the honesty in these responses, where I asked my question and people just said, "No, we don't." But there's hope, which I really appreciated, because they're like, "Yeah, that would be great. We could add that on the website. We can make new brochures." That's a really good idea. So I think that really resonated with me. Another challenge is community trust, which Yvonne already expertly spoke to us about. So one example is when we met with Linda McDonald from the Pamlico County Disaster Recovery Coalition. I asked her about the Hispanic community and just to like tell me about how they visit the office and what that interaction looks like. She shared that she knew who the families were because she's very connected within the community, but that they rarely came in to ask for any assistance. Don't worry, I will translate this for you. So this is what one of the executive directors from a nonprofit organization said when I spoke with him. He said, "The first challenge is obviously going to be the language. But the second challenge, which is probably the most important of all, is migratory status." And we're seeing that right now. And a lot of these organizations are aware of this, that it's difficult to build this trust within the community because there's a lot going on with the current political climate, and they're very afraid to let anybody in. Even if they feel comfortable, they don't know if their neighbor feels comfortable. So then that way they're protecting each other. So it's a very tight-knit community that's very difficult to enter. Another challenge is very limited bilingual staffing. It does exist, but it's very limited. Sometimes it's just one person. So if this one person is on vacation, if this one person gets sick, who do they have to support the Hispanic community? So we spoke with someone who mentioned this, who said that they came in and they weren't part of like engineering or anything like that. They were part of the home consortium program, but they're translating engineering stuff. They're translating everything. But as you can imagine, when you have to add that on top of your own duties, it's a lot for one person. And I think when they shared that to us, you can kind of feel the burden, but they also wanted to help. So it's kind of this delicate balance where you want to help, but you also have to do your actual job. And I don't even know if they're getting compensated for the translation services. Another challenge is resources. So something that they mentioned, again, the executive director of a nonprofit organization mentioned that perhaps these organizations or the local governments, regional, state governments, or what have you, they have the will, they have the intention to do it, but what they don't have is a capacity. And when you don't have the capacity, that limits your outreach and it limits the attention that the community gets. And then there's other places where the Hispanic community is just not considered at all. And then when we met with somebody else from, again, the Home Consortium program, they mentioned how they emailed HR about 3 upcoming community engagement meetings. And they said, okay, I would love to have a translator. And HR replied and said, great, that's going to be $97 an hour for 3 different meetings. So translating comes at a price. So what we've seen is that it's not just a lack of resources, it's also a lack of connection. So what can we do to connect with the Hispanic community? We can meet people where they are, and they are on Facebook quite a lot. So it could be including multilingual information on social media. So here we have, it's like intermixed with the English, but the city of Greenville constantly posts on Facebook, and they're ensuring that they communicate with their community. Even some city and state websites, you can go all the way to the top right. They have a select language button, and you could choose from a multitude of languages, not just Spanish. And it automatically translates the entire website. Maybe not all the forms and documents and stuff, but you can at least kind of get a feel for what's going on and navigate on your own. And then building trust, which again is super important, especially right now. So I think it's really important to ensure that you build that trust with the community and ensure that the services that you offer are for them, because they need to know that you are there for them. We also need more bilingual staff and resources. So as the executive director said, he said, if you don't have that bilingual staff, it's going to be very few people who are going to come to your office. And the same goes for the brochures and the materials. If that doesn't exist, it doesn't set a very welcoming tone. So it's going to be really hard for them to come to you, which is why meeting them where they are is also very important. Because representation matters. So this is from the city of Greenville, and I really like this quote, so I'll read it. And what I love about this department is that the desire for equity and that this desire for reaching all populations is there, or I guess I kind of paraphrased, but they didn't have any Latin representation in the department. So I came in and I was like, I know your intention is fantastic, but you're not thinking about the community the way that I'm thinking about the community. So it makes a difference, especially in leadership roles. So again, the same executive director who was amazing in our interview, he said, I don't see any Latin representation in the spaces where people are making decisions, in the spaces where planning is going on, in the spaces where they're trying to figure out how to help people during natural disasters or natural hazards. And another executive director, a different one, said, your board should represent who you're servicing. And this picture stood out to me. It reminded me of an episode of Parks and Recreation where Leslie Knope added her picture to the wall, where she was the first female, I forget her position because she changed a lot. Anyway, I thought that this picture was great because here we can see Mayor Sharon Harker, who in 2001 was elected to become the first African-American mayor for the town of Beaufort. And I think that that's really important for everybody. So who can we partner with? Who are the community spark plugs that you can connect with? A Mexican is definitely one of them. So if you haven't connected with them, I highly recommend it. They're amazing. Their mission is to foster the appreciation and understanding of prosperity of the Mexican and Latino community. They have 6 different avenues where they focus that on: education, advocacy, culture, leadership, health, and binational programs. So they actively work with Mexico, and they also serve the community in the country as well. During or after a disaster, they assist with food distribution, with financial support, and then also with volunteering. But mainly in their position, they act as a facilitating agency between the Hispanic community and then county officials or local officials, whether that's the local government or emergency managers. So then I added little action buttons if you want to visit their website, if you want to contact them. And then they also have a really cool resource directory where you can, I won't open that right now, but you can do that on your own, where you can see all the different locations in North Carolina, excuse me, and all the different resources that you can find to support the Hispanic community. And then Mexican also has 2 different leadership programs. One of them is the NC Latino Disaster Recovery Alliance. So they're comprised of individuals and organizations that assist with disaster relief. And again, they facilitate that communication between the vulnerable populations and then the emergency management or county officials. Part of the Mexican is also the Latino Resource Network. And this is a network comprised of Latino organizations that are run by Latinos. So this is a really nice network that you can contact if there's someone that you need in order to assist your community. There's also the North Carolina Inclusive Disaster Recovery Network, which is part of MDC, which used to stand for like Manpower something something, but they changed the name to just MDC. And their goal is to pretty much establish equity throughout the South. And so this organization focuses obviously North Carolina, and they're a collaborative of public, nonprofit, and faith-based organizations that are trying to find equity for their communities, particularly when it comes to disaster recovery. And their goal is to come up with or establish a better connected community and leadership. So again, here's their website, and then you can connect with their program director. I haven't personally connected with him because I need a couple more weeks to do that, but his name is on the website, so I'm assuming he's free for you to email. Some people I didn't add their contact information because I didn't get their permission and I didn't want to have them be overloaded with more work without establishing that communication first. I also learned about the Legal Aid of North Carolina. They do have a specific Hispanic contact there, or bilingual staff. And they offer assistance with FEMA appeals, they offer assistance with insurance appeals, and they also can assist with landlord disputes. And they have specific disaster relief information, and then you can also contact them here. And then I also learned about ULECAN, which is Unión de Latinos del Este de Carolina del Norte. And they specifically serve Carteret, Craven, and the Pamlico counties. So I think In one of our conversations with a nonprofit organization, I asked if they partnered with anybody who served the Hispanic community, and we were in Craven County, and they said no. To my knowledge, that does not exist, but it does. So I'm hoping that this could help that connection grow, because they also provide advocacy, education, and promote equity in underserved communities. And again, their website, but they do have a direct email. I also kind of briefly put together some resources just for the Hispanic population in general. It's not as fancy as what I just showed you, but this shows that there's a lot of work to be done. And I hope to be able to continue this work because being in Eastern North Carolina has really inspired me to kind of explore a little bit past Florida, where hurricanes are a little bit routine, and come to an area where the marginalized population, I think Megan once mentioned this, goes beyond the margins, specifically in this area. Some resources, so some guides. So this was me just pulling out links to documents and making them accessible instead of having people like dig through the websites and seeing any information about CAMA, for example. So the Program for Coastal Community Resilience, their guide is available in Spanish, but it's a little bit difficult to find. This is some more information about hurricanes. And then the Red Cross is a huge organization. They do have specific boards that are completely made up of Hispanics, and they serve the Hispanic community. So they're able to connect really easily with the community. So the Red Cross also has great resources. And then just a quick plan of action, protect your documents. And this is in general, and we're in hurricane season, so this is just speaking to everybody in the room. You could check if you live in an evacuation zone. A lot of states do have that information available, and here it is in Spanish. You can register in North Carolina with specific county emergency alert systems, and they need your address and your phone number and your name. So they are not asking for like a social security or anything. So it's open to a lot of people. There's also an emergency kit that hopefully you can start getting ready. So food, potable water, flashlights, medicines, medications, a portable radio, extra batteries, a charger for your phone, and cash, which is very important because, as you'll learn later, it's part of the infrastructure, the critical infrastructure. So why does this matter? So something that I also learned was that when speaking with the executive director of this nonprofit organization, they said that one of their greatest challenges and obstacles is trying to facilitate an effective and intentional conversation at the local, at the regional, and at the state level, and the role that their organization plays within each of them. And so my challenge to you is that if anyone else or anyone in the future comes to your office looking for resources, for materials, for a brochure, or just to talk to someone in Spanish, I hope that in the future you can say sí. And then heartfelt thanks to Dr. Malay. I don't have enough words to express how amazing you've been for the last 6 weeks. Whew, I'm getting a little emotional. I didn't. My mentor, Chris Lenhart, over in Colorado, thank you so much. My fellow summer scholars, amazing, you slay, kings and queens. Every single person we met across Eastern North Carolina who took the time to share their stories with us and to invest in us. I felt seen. I felt like you really valued our presence and you made us feel important. And so thank you for that to all of you. The Bill Anderson Fund, I also did not know about this opportunity before it was shared within our community. So thank you so much to Nenia. Eddie Davis, my husband, who traveled all the way out here and endured like a very long trip. Charles and Mavis Davis, my cats, who I miss so dearly. And my friends and family who have also been incredible support systems while I've been away, following my dreams. So to all of you, gracias.
We would be happy to hear questions from those of you who are online. Sarah Beth?
Oh,
no, I don't know.
Unpin our. Maybe you could
Go
just display more.
Oh.
View in the top right.
What do I do?
View in the top.
Sarah Beth.
Hi,
Go ahead.
are you guys ready?
Yeah, go ahead, get us started.
All right, Michelle, that was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I have a quick question. So back in the spring, as I'm sure you saw, the National Weather Service said they were going to discontinue their warning system for non-English speakers. And then at the end of the month, they reinstated it. But you mentioned some organizations that could have stepped up and filled in. But if they did actually follow through and did get rid of those warnings, would that have been adequate? Like, would it have been feasible for those organizations? And I'll put some links in the chat for anyone who's interested, but I'd love to hear from an expert.
Well, thank you. Can you rephrase that question?
Sure, that I did not. That was very kind of roundabout. I was
No,
just
you're good. It's my brain is like a little burned out now, so it's just if you could just rephrase it, please.
So if the National Weather Service actually did end up getting rid of those warnings in Spanish, could those organizations, could they have adequately stepped in and filled that gap, do you think?
No, I don't think so. Because a lot of organizations get the National Weather Service is such an integral part of hurricane risk communication and weather communication in general. And like, I'll give you an example. I forgot who, okay, we were meeting with someone from Greenville and they were translating a brochure for engineering and they're like, I don't know what the word in Spanish for floodplain is. And like, I encounter that as well. Like sometimes, like, how do you translate twister? There's no word for twister in Spanish. It's tornado maybe, but even then you have to rely on the person being familiar with the hazard, especially when you're dealing with a Hispanic community that can come from very, very different places. They may not have encountered a tornado ever. So like, how do you put it into words, which literally I cannot do. So that's my non-expert opinion. So I hope that helped.
Yeah, no, I feel much smarter. Thank you.
Chris.
Yes, hello, good morning. Excellent job, Michelle. Of course, I'm a little biased being your mentor, but awesome anyway. So it's nice to see it all come together. I know you've done a ton of work. So this is kind of maybe a little bit out there question. What did you have any like surprises, things that you learned that you didn't expect, or wasn't just something different than what you thought, counterintuitive, anything like that?
I think a lot of it was a surprise, and I think that comes from just me being a Florida girl. So for me, Miami, like it's not difficult to find someone who will speak Spanish, and it's not difficult to get information about hurricanes in Spanish. Like you go to Publix, and there's hurricane guides in English and Spanish. Like who, like John Morales, like everyone knows who he is. Like I have a T-shirt with his face on it. Like it's just the thing. So I expected something similar here, and I realized that there wasn't. And I think that was my biggest surprise. So when I felt silly asking people, do you have this brochure in Spanish? And I was like, obviously they do. And then they're like, huh? Good idea. Like, that's a really good idea. And I was like, oh, like this isn't as universal as I thought it was. So I think that was my biggest surprise.
Thanks.
Oh, Juvencio. Yes.
Muy buenos días. Good morning, everybody. Juvencio with the Association of Mexicans in North Carolina. Michelle, this is a great presentation. Thank you for the invite, and thank you for reaching out to us to have a conversation about this amazing work that you did in such a short time. But one of the things that I really reflects to me that things have really changed in rural Eastern North Carolina. I'm a native of Mexico, living in Eastern North Carolina for the past 40 years, been an activist for almost 30 years, and also see that across the board in rural Eastern North Carolina, we do have a lot of work to do. So it's amazing to see what you highlight, Michelle, but also the other presenter, also what things I highlight. I see this as an opportunity for us to continue to research, but also to continue to develop some actions in specific that could help us, traditional organizations and non-traditional organizations, to better develop a framework or also infrastructure for rural Eastern North Carolina. The challenge and the struggles is not just only for one particular community, it's across the board with all communities. But I think having the research and having these initiatives, the students take on it, and you professors that really put this on the map and bringing it to the table, it really highlights the opportunities that we have to continue to embrace challenges, but also opportunities. And Michelle, thank you so much for everything you did in these 6 weeks. You spend your time in rural Eastern North Carolina, and we welcome you to stay in Eastern North Carolina. We need
Gracias.
Thank you so much. Gracias.
Yeah.
Great presentation, Michelle. Thank you. And I just wanted to know if you could talk a little bit more about your plans to share back your findings and to really try to prompt that action with based on the work that you did this.
I've been thinking about it because I'm ABD, so I'm getting ready to just focus on my dissertation. And so for one of my chapters, I was going to explore how different here. I was like, I kind of like it here. So I'm not exactly sure right now, but I want to be able to tie in what I've learned here and continue the work somehow, possibly in my dissertation. Especially now that I'm making these connections, I don't want to just show up and be like, okay, I just needed you for my chair presentation. See ya. I want to be able to continue these connections and contribute to the community here as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris, did you have another question?
I do, if there's time.
Of course. You earned it, my friend. You earned it.
No, Michelle earned being on the hot seat. No, so my question is maybe a little bit more substantive than the earlier one, but thanks. So sort of obviously all the work that you presented kind of focuses on what I would kind of, to borrow from the economic world, the supply side, the information supply side. And I know we talked a little bit, and you even alluded in your presentation about sort of the demand side, the consumer side. But I'm curious what your thoughts are about how what you learned ties in with how people receive the information in these communities. You alluded that it's not a monolithic community. So what are the implications of that? Just curious what your thoughts are on that. Thanks.
I feel like I don't have a clear answer for that at the moment, because I only saw one side of the coin, so to speak. I met with local organizations, I met with like change makers, I met with gatekeepers, but I didn't meet with the community. And I don't want to say that after 6 weeks, I'm suddenly an expert in all things Hispanic community in Eastern North Carolina. I'm not the expert. They are, the community is. So I think to fully answer your question, I would need to spend more time and build trust with the community and actually find out what they need, especially since it is so complex.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, and you even alluded to it right at the beginning of your presentation, in the sense of coming from what you knew of as natural hazards, you had to adjust your frame of reference, as it were. So that may be something to be keeping in the back of the mind as you move forward with your dissertation work.
Absolutely.
Anyone in the room? Oh, Christopher.
Oh no.
Christopher, are you going to ask whether she's finished with her building identifications?
I'm with my building IDs.
Oh, no, I wasn't gonna ask about the labeling text.
I'm teasing you, Christopher. You're welcome to ask anything you'd like.
Okay, great presentation. I was just curious to know, from your own perspective, what do you see as the potential and benefits of using AI in Wix communications? So, for instance, we have an input of the information being in English, and then you want to be able to translate to different diverse communities, say in Spanish, in French. Like for instance, while I was in Poland, I lived for several years. I didn't understand Polish, but I was able to live and survive because we could always easily translate and all of that, and I understood a little of that. So what do you see as a potential of like, having, do you see that as a prospect in like developing models? I know that those models exist right now. So probably in the area of risk communication, probably in maps, creating visualizations and all of that, real-time translation. Do you see potential in that? And what are your thoughts on that generally?
I do see potential. I think that it can be really helpful. I use it like I speak Spanish, but I don't always remember where the accents are. So I was talking with Sarah last night. I have to go with ChatGPT and be like, is there an accent in this word? So it is helpful, but I don't think we should rely on it. I think that the model that the National Weather Service follows, where they do use AI, but then they can also rely on someone to review what they write. I think it's really important to have someone give it a second look, just to make sure it makes sense. For example, and this was not part of the cheer program, but I was looking at an AI translated message about Hurricane Beryl, I believe. And it was translated to Spanish using AI, and they left the word in English. The word was scattered, and the word exists in Spanish. Like, it's there. So for some reason, it just overlooked the word scattered. And so I think that it's not, foolproof isn't the right word, but it doesn't guarantee that you're going to have a perfect translation. So you still need a Spanish speaker to kind of give their input, especially because there's a lot of nuances with the Spanish language, depending on where the person is from. Some words mean different things, or you want to communicate things a different way. So AI is a great tool, but I think that it's not something we should 100% rely on.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Anyone in the room?
It's not a question, but to say you've done amazing work.
We have the same link for this afternoon's presentation.